I recently upgraded my iPhone, which meant, of course, I can trade in the old one. Well, there's a bunch of BS with Best Buy, so I couldn't just trade it in towards the cost of the new one. But I could later trade it in and get a Best Buy gift certificate. So figure I better make use of that by sitting on the bag. That's so well prepared here. So just wanted to show you what I got here. I got the Ultraman and Ultra Q Blu-ray steelbooks. I mean, I do already have these. I mean, Ultraman on DVD. Sometimes multiple copies. Hey, Alice, would KFP like that? But I also would like to marathon, more or less marathon it. Take a lot of pee and sleep and Christmas breaks. Watch the episodes in production order. I think that would be rather interesting, because they were broadcast in quite a different order. Generally, that's not a problem, although the first episode is near the end of the series, actually, that they broadcast it. It's not, holy, but, well, maybe I'll vlog it. Okay, now that I've figured out the order in which they were originally shot, let's actually do an unboxing here. I haven't actually done that. Of course, I can't really do a real unboxing because I already took off the shrink wrap and the protective wrap, but we can still see here. Do it. Can you see that? It's embossed. Yep, so do that with the other side here. Well, if we do this, we get this. We do this, we get Namekujira there with the swirly paint motif, which is we do this side too. But we got pre-Pigmon. Pigmon before he was Pigmon. I guess we'd look the name up here. Of course, we've got eyes. I remember Otaku no Video translating it as soul. I should see what the real correct translation. Of course, they've got some background here, and episode listing, which definitely came in handy when putting the list together here. I could immediately tell which disc everything was on. And they got, of course, well, just not a comprehensive guide to all the monsters, but to some of the better ones, and cast, just the three main cast and this one supporting character, Professor Ichinotani. They don't mention the two goofy reporters who Edogawa Yuriko sometimes has to compete with. More on that later, and some of the gadgets here. So it's informative enough for what it is. So let's open this and get to me complaining about something other than my dad deciding to interrupt me with a phone call again. Yeah. This time I made sure to cover up the code for the download. And, can you see this here? Yeah, here I spend the extra money for the limited edition steelbook, and they stack them. And I'm rather worried here. I mean, never mind scratching the discs. I'm afraid that I'm afraid of breaking them. Okay, just got the swirled paint here. Okay, just swirly paint under. Whoops. Okay. Yeah. For all that work, I want to make sure you see it. I think I'll skip unboxing this one. I have enough stress worrying about these discs. So, yeah. What do you guys... Mill Creek, would you guys mind not doing that in the future, or Indigo, or whoever you guys are? Bum 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 bum. Okay, I just watched the first episode in production order, the fourth in broadcast order, Manmo Sufurawa, the Mammoth Flower. And before I say anything else, they used honorifics! Squee! It's not as important as some things, but still, I'm pretty sure that the Shout Factory DVD version didn't include honorifics. I will check after I'm done with this, since I've got to switch discs anyway. Though I do want to say here, gee, look at this. They're not stacked. I can take them out without worrying about scratching and damaging the one underneath it. No, I won't let that go. Otherwise, well, speaking of subtitles, they didn't translate the credits. Not that big a deal, and I do kind of wonder maybe somewhere at the end of the collection will be a bulk credits translation. The subtitles could be a little more readable, but it's not too bad. It's mostly just when you see the credits, sometimes the subtitles are a little hard to read. And speaking of the credits, the announcement, which of course as you hear, they translated as "Your mind will leave your body." Oh, sorry, "Your eyes will leave your body," and Animego translated it as "your soul," and here in the narration in the subtitles, they translated it as "you will experience a parting of mind from body." Should I get to the plot? Well, it starts off, it's late at night in what we soon find out is Tokyo, and a beat cop suddenly hears this rumbling, and then the sidewalk starts coming up, and the building starts shaking, rubble falls on him, and then we got the credits. Well, then Manjome Jun, who is a charter pilot and also writes science fiction stories, and Ogawa Ippei, and they put the names in Western order, are at an office here to pick up flyers to drop. We soon learn from some dialogue that they run a charter air service. They have a Cessna and a helicopter. The dialogue actually is said to their friend Edogawa Yoriko. It's not actually clear that she's a reporter. She definitely likes to investigate things. She always has her camera. Maybe she's a reporter, maybe she isn't. But there's a little bit of back and forth. So, that's how we learn that Jun and Ippei have the charter service, and that Jun writes science fiction stories. It's expository dialogue done as if it were natural dialogue. That's pretty hard to do. The main characters already know each other. They also know Dr. Ichino Tani here. He shows up in this episode as well. I think that's a good idea. It's kind of like how in the first X-Men movie, Scott and Jean were already a couple. That way, we won't have to wonder, how did these guys fall in love? That's unconvincing. No, they already know it. I mean, I think everybody knows at least one couple who, I have no idea how they ever would have gotten together, but they clearly did, and it seems to work. Okay. Anyway, there are earthquakes, and eventually we discover this is caused by a mammoth flower, Manmosu Flower, although for some reason the subtitles, other than the actual episode title, say giant flower. I have no idea why. That seems really, really stupid. So they try to chop it down, they try to burn it down. The army gets involved, the police get involved, scientists, including Dr. Ichino Tani, get involved, and eventually they decide they've got to burn it, and then another scientist said, no, couldn't we wait one more day and study it? And Dr. Ichino Tani actually has a pretty good line here: optimism is dangerous. But the other scientist, you don't understand how I feel, but then a bloom, an actual flower bursts out of the building. We see it's ready to germinate. So then the other scientist, pretty sure it's Gendo, comes up with the idea on what to do with it. The idea is isolate it from the carbon dioxide. Well, I see it was anchor it from carbon dioxide using fixed carbonic acid, which apparently is a real thing. He doesn't actually say fixed. He just opens this suitcase that has these vials of something. If you look, it says fixed carbonic acid in English. And so June flies into plane, and the professor releases it, and it weakens the plant, and then they can use their flamethrowers and defeat it. And there's more narration about how the Earth is passing through an unbalanced zone, which was originally the series was going to be called Unbalanced. Oh yeah, maybe I should talk about the special effects. They're not, wow, if I didn't know this was fake, I'd think it was real. But there's also not, seriously, Corman, nothing like that. They are interesting. There's a famous story when they're making Frankenstein Conquers the World. There's a scene with a stable and a model horse, and someone asked Tsuburaya, hey, why didn't you insert a real horse by an optical or rear projection? He said, a model horse is more interesting. And these special effects are interesting, and I mean that in a good way, or I might actually say neat, because I'm just old enough for that to mean cool. Oh yeah, there's also a woman who works at the business where they... That might be the newspaper that Yoriko ends up working for, or maybe already works for, question mark, because I seem to remember one of the goofy reporter guys from future episodes working there. But the woman, they're named Michiko, I think, Mi-chan for short, at least that's what Ippei calls him. I think she's his girlfriend. I didn't even realize she had a girlfriend when I was watching it originally, so in fact, Just noticed the description here. Oh, he has a girlfriend. That's interesting. There's one scene I thought was interesting for just a moment. After they hear about the Mammoth flower plant, June and Ippei cancel the thing they were about to do, and jump in the car and drive back to, I don't think that far from Tokyo anyway. Drive. And I was wondering for them, why don't they use their planes? Because they would have to file a flight plan, whereas hopping in the car, you don't need to. That's probably a good idea, actually. Plus, you'd have to land. Well, I guess, well, even a helicopter, you'd need some clearance to land. Car, you can just drive. Although, wouldn't there be a lot of traffic? I am overly nitpicking. This is not Your Movie Sucks. So I'm going to check for the honorifics for the DVD release, and then on to episode 2. Well, first of all, the DVD does use honorific suffixes, but senpai is translated as sir, which, if you don't know why that's a bad translation, look it up. This is why dubs are evil and subtitles rule. Also, the subs didn't mention the helicopter. He definitely said helicopter, but this is Cessna. It's only a propeller plane. So there's nothing about it being a propeller plane. It says Cessna and a helicopter. Incidentally, the subtitles are yellow, and, well, I don't know, they do stand out a bit more, but I don't know, I always wonder about colored subtitles for black and white footage. And to be fair, the black and white the subtitles for the Blu-ray, really, they're not that invisible. They're only a little bit hard to read. Sometimes I'm pausing during the credits while there are credits and subtitles on the screen when I want to get an exact quote. And speaking of exact quotes, the DVD translates that line, now your eyes are away from your body. And in fact, the whole translation of this, and I think the other Shout Factory subtitled Tsuburaya releases are also a bit Englishy. The Blu-ray less so, well, good for you, Mill Creek. Now work on that packaging. There's also a little bit more I wanted to mention about the episode proper. One thing which it didn't occur to me until, I guess, fridge logic, icebox logic, if you're old enough. Why would they have a charter pilot fly the plane that drops the chemicals on the plant and not, the army or the police or whatever? And, well, his planes seem to already have equipment, so maybe he does crop dusting as well. I mean, they've got a charter plane service. They got to take whatever job they can get. So the idea that the plane might be outfitted for crop dusting is not unlikely. Also, well, he was an experienced pilot, and the military's advisor, Dr. Ichinotani, speaks highly of him. Plus, time was of the essence. And also, there's just the fact that if you like something, it's much easier to suspend your disbelief even over something major than it is to suspend your disbelief even over something minor for something that's less enjoyable. I'm talking to you, Michael Bay, and makers of the Jumper and makers of the remake of everything, pretty much. Bum 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 bum. Metamorphosis, or Henshin. And I gotta say, this is one time where broadcasting them out of production order does cause a bit of a problem. Yuriko is now definitely working as a photographer for a newspaper, and actually the office from the previous episode was Tokyo Advert, or possibly Tokyo Advertising, and the goofy guy there was not one of the two goofy reporters. He's an actor I've definitely seen in a lot of other stuff. He looks kind of like a Japanese shemp. Maybe I should actually look up who he is. Anyway, the thing which I remember before, I have a few elements from this episode and the previous one conflated. A giant footprint is sighted in the north, implying there might be a Yeti there, or Yuki Otoko, as they say in Japanese, snowman. That kind of snowman is Yuki Daruma. Snow Dharma, or Daruma, look it up. And Yuriko wants to go investigate it, but the chief instead sends the two goofy, bumbling reporters, and I remember thinking, why is he sending those incompetent twerps and not his top reporter? But because she's not his top reporter yet. She's just started working, possibly even this episode. So it's still some of the things he said are a little bit sexist. Well, indicative of the sexism of the time, which is still sexist. It is interesting later on in the episode. Am I getting ahead of myself? Who cares? Later on in the episode, when she gets a good story and the other guys don't get anything, the boss praises her, and I don't think he... Not even a, hey, I told you not to go. How dare you disobey my orders? No, none of that BS that you see all too often. I think from then on, it's he sends her. I think. We'll find out. Anyway, she gets a call from her old friend Ayako, who reveals that she didn't break up with her fiancé Koji a year ago. She and Koji, who was an etymologist, were hunting butterflies, and they discovered this rare butterfly, the Morpho, which normally only found in the Amazon. And you could tell from its colors, and I admit I couldn't help thinking, gray? He follows it and then gets poisoned by a giant butterfly, which causes him to turn into a giant, and it does not come across nearly as goofy as or actually at all goofy. It's done very seriously and dramatically, and unless you're a jerk who's deliberately looking for holes in things, they try to find him, and Ayako tries to tell him that the army wants to shoot him, others want to capture him alive. Please go away before you get hurt, before you hurt me. And well, then Dr. Ichinotani zaps him with a thermal atomic X-ray, which is kind of like a small maser / Marcolite, and Koji runs off, and somehow this causes him to shrink back to normal size. Good episode. Well done. It is interesting. Koji had fairly short hair and was clean shaven. Now he has a beard and longer hair. It still seems remarkable. Both seem remarkably short and well kempt, considering he's been a giant for a year. But whatever. That, and where did his loincloth, which they kind of try to make it look like it's leather, but it's pretty much obviously woven cloth. I don't know. I don't mind that. That's easily forgivable because I like the thing overall. The narrator once again mentions unbalanced zone, and that's really it. And overall a good episode. Excellent miniatures. This is more of a rural area. It's actually stepping on the dam kind of river bed built up a bit with rocks and stones, and he keeps stepping too close to it. Well, it's Tsuburaya. Of course the models are going to be decent looking. I might argue that, well, I don't know, the giant butterflies, they work. I mean, they're clearly superimposed. So, episode 3, The Devil Child, Akumako. The first episode to not feature a giant anything. So, of course, it was saved for episode 25. Well, it begins with a person driving at night and then swerving to avoid hitting something and crashing. And the next day we find out that this is a rather common occurrence lately. A lot of people crashing just before dawn. Then our three heroes and Dr. Ichinotani go to see a stage show where a hypnotist hypnotizes his little daughter Lily. Closes the box where she's in, and then a ghostly version of Lily appears above the box and walks on the air. And while the others, of course, think it's a trick, Dr. Ichinotani thinks it's due to human bioelectricity being unbalanced. Ooh, there's that word again. And her father, by the way, he's appropriately over the top. Not out of place. He's a showman. I'm sure I've seen him in something before. Probably several somethings. We soon discover that Lily's father hypnotizes her to sleep. Great parenting there. Although later on, when our heroes find out about this, he says there are different types of bodies, and her type of body has to be hypnotized to go to sleep, and that had been the case since she was a baby. No, I think you're just a bad parent. You ever tried warm milk? I don't know, lullabies? Something. Well, I guess he does have a lullaby. He's got a music box, with that music box, more on that later. Eventually, it's realized that all the people who die lost something. It had something with them, usually a toy or a trinket, a flashlight, something like that. We eventually find out all those items have been appearing in Lily's music box. And she's questioned, and she doesn't know. She just wakes up, and suddenly it's there. Dr. Ichinotani makes Ippei astral project by putting his human bioelectricity out of balance, and then he puts it back to normal. And he has this kind of technology, really? I guess that'll make it, spoilers, let's not get ahead of ourselves. So yeah, apparently it turns out that when Lily is hypnotized to sleep, her soul, they refer to her astral form, whatever, kind of her id, really, goes out and, I want that toy. How do I get that toy from the guy? I'll kill him. And then you see, eventually, says she sometimes wakes up with blood on her hands. Now, Lily suddenly disappears. Her body disappeared. And her father thinks she must be heading north to the mountains because she believes that's where her mother is, because They never told her mother was dead. They said he's in the mountains. I mean, did they try to explain it to her and she was too young to understand? Or more likely they just thought, oh, she would be too young to understand, so let's make up a BS story. That's not going to bite us in the rear end at all, unless she has some kind of magical astral projection id powers. So, basically her soul, astral form, whatever, lures her onto the train tracks, so she'll be hit by a train, and then I guess the id will be free. I kind of wish they would have played a little more with the psychological underpinnings of this, but fortunately, Dr. Ichinotani has whipped up a portable version of his body electricity rebalancer and works. I mean, questionable science aside, and it is a very atmospheric, well done, entertaining story, and it's interesting the astral projection, the superimposed Lily astral projection doesn't quite move in sync with the background, and I want to think that's deliberate to make her more otherworldly and ghostly. It might not be, but shh, don't tell me. Oh yeah, one of the two goofy reporters is a newlywed. Somebody married him, and I can't even get a girl. Okay, no, not really looking either, if you just assume that the friend zone is real, if only as a theoretical construct, you don't get hurt and you don't do something really stupid. That's probably really stupid too. Also, he apparently dies? Or maybe that's a different character? I don't know. Or maybe the goofy reporters don't appear in any other episodes? Or maybe they just forgot he dies? I don't know. Well, I guess we'll find out. Oh, yes, just some minor things. I think I noticed this truck driver constantly doing this. I'm like, the road does not look like it's that windy. At the end, Lily and her father are doing some kind of new act. Her father's made up as a clown, and she is, well, she's cute, and people are clapping. I don't know what the act is. I mean, I don't think it's going to be as successful as their previous act. Considering the consequences of the previous act, they need to stop doing it, but I really, really don't think this, maybe it's good that they don't show us more of the actor. It'll be like Ollie the Trout makes a friend. Oh no, now Daddy Derek's gonna flag my video. It just occurred to me that Ghost Lily wanted to kill real Lily because with the death of the solid meat, physical, whatever you're gonna call it, body, the soul would be active all the time instead of only when Lily's asleep, although, well, I guess maybe Lily was sort of sleepwalking. Wow, the more I review this, the worse the story. It's good. You should watch the episode. I'm overthinking it. That's usually a good thing. That's why Adam Sandler has less of a career. People are thinking. The fourth episode produced was the penultimate episode broadcast. In fact, some might say it was the final episode because it was the last one broadcast during the series' original run. It was broadcast in early July of 1966, and then the 28th episode was broadcast mid-December of 66. The next week was supposed to have Ultra Q, apparently, but then they decided to use that to do a promotional special for their upcoming successor series. Yeah, understandable perhaps. The title is The Disappearance of Flight 206, or Nimarorokubin Shometsusu. So, June and Ippei are on a flight, in fact, not just any flight, but the first passenger supersonic jet flight. This was in 1966, and there's a lot of talk about making supersonic passenger jets, and that actually didn't start until a decade later with the Concorde in 1976, but a lot of these shows are based on speculation, and so some are even set a few years in the future. I don't think this series is, but Ultra 7 was. So was Ultraman Tiga and Dyna. Well, the plane enters a mysterious dimension of, well, I'd like to say endless fog. Sometimes it looks like endless fog. Sometimes you can kind of see the studio walls. Filled with a lot of lost airplanes, mostly from World War II. Well, entering this dimension knocks everybody out, and Jun and Ippei are the first ones to recover, and they immediately start investigating. Next person to recover is a criminal who is being transported, and so he steals the handcuff keys, and now you're handcuffed, and the gun from his escort. Then he shoots the radio and holds everybody at gunpoint and tells them to leave there. Yeah, now we're gonna go. He finds what he thinks are diamonds, and then he just kind of falls into the void. Not sure what happens. It's effective. It's one of those things, you know what? that works. I'm not gonna not suspend my disbelief for that. Then they get chased by a monster. It's a giant walrus named Todola, which is actually Magma, the giant monster from the Japanese version of Gorath, but not the American cut. Well, certainly this is a movie that needs an uncut, subtitled, widescreen, anamorphic DVD, or better yet, Blu-ray release in this country. So does this. I've never seen the Japanese cut of Gorath, but I've seen stills of the giant walrus, and, well, in the stills, it looks just like it did in this episode. Bad. And I think they should have had more fog. Maybe this is why the fourth episode, despite having a giant monster, was held over for so long. The giant monster isn't in it much, and when he is, he's not very convincing. It's a good episode overall, but that is not a convincing monster. So they managed to repair the radio with the help of a passenger who is a gaijin. I'm not sure if his voice is dubbed or if he's German or what, but they somehow managed to restart the engines and get out of there, and there's some narration, which is a little bit reminiscent of that Twilight Zone episode where the plane goes back in time, except that one, well, we hope they'll make it home. This one made it home. It's kind of interesting. Yoriko, when she finds out that June is missing, might have disintegrated, she faints. I'm not sure. I'd like to watch in subsequent episodes if she would respond similarly to similar information. I kind of hope she would get stronger as a character, but then, since this is shown later, but the whole problem with showing it later thing that occurred in the previous... not the previous episode, but the one before that. Yeah. In episode 2 being episode 22. It is kind of interesting looking how planes were at the time. I've been on a plane recently, and I thought it was kind of wasteful that everything is sealed in plastic, but that might actually be a good idea. I mean, here's the stewardess, that was the term then. I would not call her a stewardess now. Now I would call her a flight attendant, but this was 1966. Was walking around with a tray of hors d'oeuvres, and people are, well, I think there are toothpicks in them, but still it's like, ooh, no, stop. You touched if they were in plastic. And then, she offers them to the cop and then to the criminal. Here, toss. Like, great, now that's all over. I can see why they don't do that anymore, and also somewhat amusing that Jun and Ippei go to the smoking section to smoke on a plane. Great idea. Yeah. No, it's not sealed off. No, this is a smoking section. There's a magical anti-smoke force field that doesn't exist. The word unbalance is not mentioned in the narration for the first time. I will see if it's in the next episode. And also, one of these days I want to go back, maybe make a video of this, count the number of bullets because it was a revolver. We saw it had 6 bullets in the chain. Yeah. I mean, even if it was reloaded, maybe it stole some extra bullets, but even with a speed loader, that would, I'm pretty sure it was more than 6. Maybe the extra dimension multiplies bullets, I don't know. So a very interesting atmospheric episode, and especially the dimension portal. That is a great effect, especially as it disappears at the end. The giant walrus, well, Yeah, one thing, I've seen the American cut of Gorath, well, the part where the walrus is, they've got jet engines at Antarctica because they gotta blast Earth out of the path, out of its orbit, so it'll avoid a rogue planet, and then once the planet's out of the, I guess they'll blow it back, I don't know. But one of the jets isn't working, and, well, in the Japanese version, it's this giant prehistoric Antarctic walrus attacking it. Zap, zap, zap. Okay, now it's working again, good. The engine isn't working for some reason. Zap, 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 now it's working. Why would zapping it, or is it missiling it? Either way, why would shooting at it make it work suddenly? I mean, unless maybe it was being attacked by, I don't know, a giant walrus, then, yeah, I mean, then you shoot the giant walrus, and the giant walrus goes away and isn't interfering with it anymore, and it works again, sure. Except the walrus look, at least if the stills and the footage from this episode are anything to go by, that walrus looked so fake. And I mean, I'm willing to forgive a lot, but that's bad even by forgiving standards. So, well, time for episode 5.
Bum 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 bum. Look at my bum bum bum.
bum bum. Ultra Q Episode 5, The Gift from Space, Uchu Kara no Okurimono. This is a good episode. Certainly a much better looking monster than the previous one. So here's the plot. Jun and Yuriko are flying over, well, they're headed towards a volcano that's going to erupt so she can get some photos for her paper. But then they see a space capsule or something, certainly something space capsule shaped with a parachute landing in the water. So they call the authorities, and turns out this was a probe sent to Mars in the previous year that was thought to have been lost and crashed on the surface. So a bunch of scientists, including Dr. Ichino Tani, examine things. And so they're around a round table. The military guy running the thing has a nameplate that says President. This is all in English, by the way. Yeah, Dr. Ichino Tani says Doctor. Everybody else, Observer, Observer, Observer. And of course I couldn't help but thinking, I'm not sure, Observer. What do you think, Observer? Well, I think we should ask Observer. Thank you, Observer. I concur with Observer. Thank you, Observer. You're welcome, Observer. And they find that the parachute is made of some kind of super advanced material. It might not even, is it cloth? Is it what? They're not sure. And there are also 2 tiny golden spheres. So they lock it up, and I guess Japanese JASA, I don't know, doesn't have that good security because a criminal it's in a safe with a bunch of money. A criminal breaks into the safe to steal the money, and you think, ooh, this is gold, I'm stealing this too. And then he goes to the airfield to try and force Jun to fly him to safety. And a fight breaks out. Jun ultimately loses, but one of the spheres is lost and unnoticed. And by the way, great use of shaky cam there. Shaky cam can work if used effectively, as opposed to, let's shake the camera for absolutely no bleeping reason whatsoever. But anyhow, Jun flies the guy somewhere where his compatriot is, calls the guy old. I don't know if it's actually his younger brother or not, but it's Kohai anyway. The guy lets Jun go, but points out that by the time he radio the authorities, he'll be long gone. So anyhow, they're hiding out in this cave with hot springs there, and well, the other ball falls into the hot springs, and then it inflates into an egg, and from there hatches Namekujira, the giant slug that can shoot rays from its eye stalks. And this is, as I said, this is a much better monster than last week's walrus monster. I mean, it's a slimy. It does look, it doesn't look entirely like it's a real giant slug. What would that even look like? But it's slimy. You don't see any seams around it doesn't have arms. So then, well, that kills the criminals. And then a little later on, the newspaper hears about it. So there seems to be a new goofy bumbling reporter, although admittedly he's an entertainment reporter. So maybe I misremembered the 2 bumbling reporters being in so many episodes. But then again, I mean, how many episodes have I seen in this rewatch? 5. Anyway, Yuriko asks to be sent there. She does, and of course, who else would fly her there, right? So the 3 of them go and investigate the cave. The local authorities are too afraid to go in there, but hey, Ippei asks the police chief, hey, can I borrow your gun? Of course not. Well, then you come with us. So the giant slug chases them. They run out, and it ends up falling into the ocean. And the ocean is saltwater, and giant that shoots laser beams out of its eye stalks or not, it's still a slug. So later on, Ippei has found the other sphere, and he makes it into a pendant, which he gives to Yuriko. So they're at Dr. Ichino Tani's place, discussing, wondering, why did the Martians send this? Is it to stop us from sending probes? Is it a good idea to send probes into space? Does that anger the aliens? And meanwhile, Yuriko is making coffee, and the heat from the Bunsen burner, a scientist's place, right, affects the sphere, and it inflates. I mean, it's kind of obvious it's a balloon, but it's still it's an effective effect. They throw it out the window before it grows so big that it'll wreck the room, and immediately get some salt water started. And our narrator tells us that infinite salt water will surely take care of this. But if we keep sending probes into space, the next monster will be one that lives on salt water. It's kind of interesting. It seems to have this anti-space exploration theme. And I mean, well, it's kind of what why Unit's hired Liz Shaw, but wasn't to stop space exploration, it was to take care of what happens if... seems like an odd... Well, then again, maybe that was a real fear at the time. That, hey, what if there is a life out there, maybe they don't take kindly to our probes. Certainly some of us don't take kindly to their probes. Ow! Sorry, God, how to make that. Come on, I'm talking about aliens and probes. Minor complaint, there's one part the subtitles are italicized, but the exclamation point isn't. It looks kind of weird that they didn't italicize that thing. That's a good episode. Also, well, we've sent more and more probes into space, and so far no aliens have been annoyed at us, so I guess we're doing okay so far, right? Maybe that was a more relevant message at the time. Oh, one more thing. When Yuriko asked to be sent on the assignment, the chief is first, "You again?" But she quickly convinces him. It's interesting that he doesn't send her immediately. I wonder if that's some progression of the character. So now he'll send her if she asks, but he won't automatically think of her. I don't know. This could just be over speculation, like on the one Space 1999 commentary, where the guys, well, when the aliens become evil, the makeup around their eyes is then square instead of round. And so, no, they just didn't put the makeup on consistently. Okay, before I forget, the monster from the previous episode is named Namegon, not Namekujira. Namekujira is the Japanese word for slug, so Namegon is derived from that. Open up, or Japanese title, Aketekure! Wow, this was a great episode. I mean, if somebody told me it was directed by Jisoji Akio, I wouldn't doubt them. It was actually directed by Tsuburaya Hajime, that's Tsuburaya Eiji's son, or first son. I mean, it's in the name, come on. Ooh, I wish I'd taken more notes. I was mostly engrossed in it. There wasn't much to complain about. At least I should have maybe kept written down the plot, because I'll try not to leave anything out, but I can't promise that. I also can't promise that I won't get some stuff out of order. June and Yuriko are going on, well, we're supposed to go for a drive with Ippei. She says, "Oh, just come on, just the two of us, let's go." And Ippei is rather angry at them, and then he looks up and he sees this white passenger train flying through the sky, and, over the credits, for which there's no opening narration. And incidentally, I forget if I mentioned the previous episode doesn't mention unbalance at all? Neither does this one. There is closing narration, we'll get to that. So anyhow, they are driving along, and Yuriko is talking about how she loved to have a world with just the two of them, and then they're talking about all the things that won't be there, no poverty, no war, no worry, no traffic accidents. Okay, they don't say that, but it did remind me of the conversation in Gamera versus Giron about the kids doing a world with no traffic accidents, which it's interesting. In the original Japanese, that comes across as funny, because, well, that's something adults are stressing and the children would think was a big, really horrible thing that needs to be corrected. And in the English dub, it's just, what the? Anyway, they're driving. It is at night. They're driving. They find what appears to be a corpse in the middle of the road. Turns out it's just a passed out drunk guy, and they decide to. I wonder if they decide to immediately take him to Dr. Ichinotani, but they're at a railroad crossing, and so he sees a train, and he freaks out. He gets out of the car, open up! And then he has what eventually is revealed to be an apparent flashback. He's trapped in this train, and the picture's kind of distorted, hence my wondering if Jisoji directed it. It asked for a ticket, but he doesn't have a ticket, and then they take him to this guy who was eventually revealed to be a science fiction writer named Tomono Kenji. Mr. Tomono explains that they are going to... actually, they refer to him as Tomono Sensei. They actually translated it as Sensei, so extra points there. We're going to a wonderful place. The guy suddenly goes to the front, and he sees images and hears voices of his beautiful wife and cute daughter. It's like, "Buddy, please come home, dear, please come home, let me out. And then he wakes up in Dr. Ichinotani's lab, and I think somebody's kind of hypnotizing him to get out of this horrible dream. And I think Ippei doesn't appear after the opening scene. Anyhow, there's another woman in an I don't think it's quite a padded cell, but some kind of isolation room, because apparently Dr. Ichino, well, he's a He's a TV/movie scientist. They're good at all sciences somehow. It still seems odd that, well, that he has almost a padded cell there. She has the same story that the drunk guy has. We find out that this mysterious train he talks about has been sighted before. And there have been sightings, there have been disappearances, and there's even this amateur film of a train car suddenly taking off. And police are trying to keep it secret. It does seem to tie down to Tomono Kenji. So Jun and Yoriko go to investigate, and they discover that he actually disappeared a year and a half ago, but he still somehow delivers manuscripts to his home to be then picked up by the publisher. He also makes occasionally phone calls his housekeeper, but I really don't know what happened to him, although he wrote a lot of books about people disappearing, on trains or elevators that keep descending and ending up in a beautiful world where things are perfect. And meanwhile, the drunk guy is in a cab returning home with his wife, who is not only isn't she beautiful, she is henpecking him, and he feels awful. And his daughter is not a cute little girl. She's a teenager who hates him and hates her mother and hates them both, and they never act like parents. And finally, he has to be let out of it because he's going to work, even though it's 4 p.m. And his boss nags him too, and then finally he just says, "Nice working with you." And then we go back to Jun and Yoriko. The car breaks down, and then she hears Tomono's voice telling her it's okay to open the manuscript that they have. So, they notice it. They theorize that he somehow traveled to this world, and they've got technology there that allows him to mail in his manuscripts and telephone his housekeeper. And not sure what happened really or how. Still kind of mysterious. And meanwhile, we see the drunk guy running down the stairs. "You let me in! Let me in! I want to go back on the train, please!" And then the narrator, "If you love your spouse and your child, be very careful what train you get into on the way home at night." Something like that. And it ends there. It's kind of a mysterious note. Nothing really solved. And I can kind of see why they saved this episode, the 6th episode produced, as the final episode. I mean, not even broadcast as part of the original run, though. I think that's more because they thought, you know what, we really want to promote this upcoming show, Ultraman, so we'll just use next week's time slot. Instead of showing this episode, we'll have a special promoting Ultraman. And that seemed to work out for them, and it was about 6 months later that this episode was finally broadcast, and it's kind of a fitting ending. It's sort of this mysterious, it actually is. This could be a Twilight Zone episode, really. But it's not where I'm ending. I've got, I think I will do one more episode today, 7 episodes, so that's the equivalent of 1 disc, and of course the equivalent of 1/4 of the series. So I think it's got monsters in it, much less deep than this. Probably be a little easier. I'll probably be keeping more extensive notes about stuff to complain about. Did I miss anything? No, I actually got everything here. Not much to complain about. Nothing really to complain about. This is, wow, in a way, it's too bad they went with the monsters so much.
Ultra, 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 QQ.
I saw a bird, Toriomita. This is, I think, the first episode to have a child protagonist. I mean, Lily, the psychic child with the id, evil astral projection, whatever you want to call her. She's more the villain. She wasn't really the protagonist. She was more of a villain / MacGuffin. But this one largely focuses more on a orphan boy in a fishing village named Saburo. Actually, this says he's an orphan and with no mention of his parents, so I guess that's true. And it's like he lives on an island near this remote fishing village and steals supplies occasionally. The kid is a natural. The kid was a great actor, or maybe just a great director directing the kid. Let's begin at the beginning here. We got the cold opening. We got a night watchman at a zoo, and great use of stock footage there. Something scares him, and get effective shaky cam used properly as opposed to, well, I know that's why you know me and shaky cam by this point, right? And the next morning, the zookeepers come by, and they see that several cages have been ripped open from the inside, and we see the night watchman there and his clutching some feathers, like, Torio Mita. And he apparently dies. So I think we cut to this fishing village, and a Viking longboat is a longboat? No, a Viking boat anyway has suddenly appeared there, and of course among the people investigating it are Yuriko, which actually makes some sense, and also Jun and Ippei. Well, I guess maybe they flew her there, so they might as well come along and help look, right? And she finds a logbook there and written in something, a language she can't read, and this little bird, a friendly little bird, which then they leave the boat, and then it melts. That's a cool special effect. I mean, obviously they built it out of paraffin and then it put heat on it. I mean, kind of like when Godzilla melts power towers, but it still looks pretty cool. And of course, it looks like wood, but it's melting, so it's a neat effect. And the bird flies away and goes to Saburo. And he asks its name. Kuro? That seems like a strange name for a white bird, but okay, Kuro means black. And he and Kuro are inseparable, usually. That night, Kuro is flown away. Meanwhile, our intrepid trio take the logbook to who else? Professor Ichinotani, who, of course, being a movie/TV show/cartoon professor, knows everything, basically, knows whatever the plot needs him to know, and he can, of course, read it, and entirely it's from the 10th century, and suddenly stops at a certain date, and he asks her about the bird, and she finally finds it in a book. It's a drawing of a prehistoric bird called the Larugeos. Yes, obviously made up, but those birds were giant, and they haven't been around for, well, actually, there was a reported sighting in the 10th century from the time the Viking ship came up. And they wonder maybe the Viking ship traveled through a time portal of some kind, taking a bird with it. And, well, I think you know what happens at night when Kuro isn't around. It's because he grows to giant size and does scary giant bird things. I think they used stock footage from Rodan and used it very well. That takes a while to figure out. First, we don't see the giant bird stuff. Then we just see, hey, that's a bird. That must be the bird that some bird did stuff. And hey, that's a bird. And hey, we hate you, Saburo. And bird, little bird attacked me. Again, that actually is less silly than I made it sound. Then it gets silly. I mean, they get the police to dogpile the bird, and then they've got the bird in a bird cage inside a jail cell. And at night, again, well, it's done with shadows. It grows, and then the giant bird is not as good as a real bird. The real bird, very well trained, by the way. And then the stock footage from Rodan, and then, well, the kid recognizes it. Yeah, Saburo recognizes that the bird is Kuro. They're, Kuro, take me with you! Take me! And he's silhouetted standing on the beach, and then we have end credits, which normally this show does not do. I mean, as I mentioned, I think that there are no opening credits. There's the series title, and the episode title, and then, well, we do hear the theme over a montage of people at the fishing village, and eventually seeing Saburo, but no on-screen credits. Here they are scrolling, and kind of old-fashioned Japanese credits that are clearly hand-cranked, so it's not quite, maybe a little bit of jitter on occasion, not quite smooth. Which, if you're nostalgic like me, is really cool. If you're not, then why are you watching a TV show from the 1960s in black and white? It's kind of a sad ending because, I mean, he doesn't take Saburo with him. Saburo is left there all alone now. I think I will pause at 7 episodes, and then hopefully for the next 3 days I'll do 7 episodes a day, and then, well, be done with this experiment in production order watching. Definitely makes more sense than doing that with Giant Robo. Some of you might know what I'm talking about.